You pray. Papa God of heaven, you living God, Almighty, everlasting, Lord of the God will save you. You create the Mogre Sali and Tablo Gra inside the Warren of the sky, you can be praising name, be glorifying name to you. You Ximogre, honor, glory, long you to soul. Papa God, thank you, Lord, you let me come, Lord, display time, Lord, display place, Lord, display chamber. Papa God, plenty time, me blame say good plan to you. Plenty time, me bless sabe behead lo you. Plenty time, me bless sabe go off strike lo you. You know say belad lo me bless, you know say cross me bless, you know say rouse me bless. That's all. Mari please sabiat na me bless stop. Thank you too much for this play. You say look at me bless longen. Papa God, me bless no righteous long high you. Plenty time me bless make him wrong. Asua, you man bless belisi, mari. Set me bless 1-1. Me bless stop lo here. Papa God, you set me bless clean me bless lo wrong me bless gat longen. Na bring him bless close to lo see bless you. Let him bless and Sidan black and make one Sunday black make this time. Thank you, Lord, blessings, please. Thank you, Lord, let him bless up. Thank you, Lord, all kind something say come up, Lord, this like ground. Papa God, you say anointing name say come up. You say scale him say come up. Okay, Sunday say come up, Lord, good blood you, Lord, me play way, me black and work towards you. Thank you, Lord, all kind something come up. Thank you, Lord, look at him life, me play. Thank you, Lord, bless him, me play. Thank you, Lord. This blood time coming up now, me play stop here. Papa God, me play thank you, Lord, for the Sunday campaign, Lord, handle you. Now me play asking you, Lord, this time. Papa God, you go pass along over something. One is something making today. Our leaders is up in this. Prime Minister is up. All members, ministers, me play stop. Papa God, you stop. Look at me play. Give me belly me play. Me play can go through this play. One is something making today. Also, me play put in speaker come long hand play you. Look at me this play. See him stop long. Now one is something making. Papa God, you bless him. Papa God, me pray that thing long. Or line long upside long opposition. One in my police. Papa God, you can talk to long all. Give him thing long all. Papa God. You make him Muslim too come up long this country, look at him 8 million plus people blow this country. Papa God give him good thing long too long can say one all must make him. Thank you, Lord. You make him like a mina blow this day where me black and boom, ready to go inside Lord this boom blow pla, Papa God is namel steering me pla. Thank you, Lord. This is prayer you give him long. Disciples now only been delivering long and Papa God like pray one time Lord this blah. Our Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
In heaven. Give us this day our daily bread.
Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Honorable members, on Friday, 13th of November 2020, a motion without notice was moved by Honorable Belden Nama pursuant to standing orders after seeking leave of Parliament, which was granted. The motion without notice that was moved was an adjournment motion to adjourn the Parliament to 1st December 2020. After careful consideration of the Chair's ruling, I am of the opinion that this ruling was incorrect. I bring to your attention Section 2(1)(a), 1 of the Organic Law on the calling of meetings of Parliament, which states, in relation to any meeting of the Parliament, the time and date for the meeting shall be fixed by the Parliament on a motion without notice by a minister. I further remind members of Standing Orders 43, which states, a motion for the adjournment of the Parliament may be moved only by a minister, and no amendment can be moved to that motion. Standing Orders 47 states, a motion for the purpose of fixing the next meeting of the Parliament may be moved by a minister at any time without notice. Honourable members, I am conscious that the adjournment motion may be a clear breach of the organic law and thus amounting to a breach of a constitutional law. It is clear from the facts that Honorable Belden Nama is not a Minister of State and therefore, under the provisions of the organic law, was not entitled to move an adjournment motion. There is some speculation that standing orders were suspended and this gave legitimacy to the motion. I disagree with that contention on the basis that a constitutional law provision cannot and should not be suspended through the use of standing orders. Therefore, in the best interest of parliamentary procedure and to uphold the rule of law, my conscience dictates that I overrule the decision made by the chair. Honorable members, the result of my decision is that the meeting of the parliament, which commenced on the Tuesday, the 10th November 2020, is still in progress, and it shall only be adjourned by a minister on a motion without notice pursuant to standing orders and the organic law on the calling of the meetings of the parliament. Thank you. Honourable members, I have to inform the Parliament that the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Broadcasting and Parliamentary Proceedings met and resolved that National Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, will be allowed to broadcast live on radio, and the National Television Service, Kundu 2, MTV, and TVWAN will be allowed to telecast live the presentation of the 2021 budget by the Minister for Treasury. Are there any petitions? No petitions? Notices? No notices? Question without notice? 45 minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ask him without notice. You go along, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you clearing Papua New Guinea, clearing Mipla along all members of Parliament, long this bung blow this meeting. I mean, this after long explanation come up in this, but you also head long executive, na CEO of Papua New Guinea, you have long clearing this Mipla so that Mipla can simply see na working more Mipla or some government. Now big plot too, Mr. Speaker, me asking Prime Minister too, lo clearing all work come up. Close to accounts by close, long account below me, long budget below me, same time services belong government, whether it's like all politics, you know, long, pillar long parliament, by not affect him, all general service belong all people below me, especially all beginning by schooling close, now all health services below me, this by affecting budget too or no God. So, Mr. Speaker, me asking Prime Minister, I can clear him, now give him belly see, now assurance long Papua New Guinea. Na members of the Parliament, so that Mipla can go on and work from Mipla. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me kiss him time, reply, question, good member of NUMU. First time through meeting, West SEPIK, lose House Minister, but all West SEPIK stop here too. Na mi hamas leader of West SEPIK. Time we go arare, long 2020. Time lo yimi finish him 1 year, na passing budget lo 2 year. You don't got plenty time start lo complete in 2020, and only 1 year before 2022 election and 2021 that's all stop. Mr. Prime Minister leading this government, gives him the highest privilege, so lead him country with me for the last almost 18 months. I mean, easy work lo lead him country lo where he got plenty heavy blow people dinner money blow before, where people try to clean him and them kiss him dinner money where he got legal interest or no got interest, or some all Australia give him, or IMF give him, or Japan like give him, or ADB give him, World Bank, go kiss him money, or site, all Proman raising money, or site deal number, no got. Working work good, starting work, so people try to clean him heavy blow country the last 18 months, including pay him dinner blow before contract outstanding. Plenty highway got contract outstanding. Plenty bank got dinner outstanding. Plenty service provider got dinner outstanding. Dinner killing me government dinner want them bank now want them site all dinner too. So the last 18 months I easy. Me give assurance lo country or some nogan worry lo one politics come up. Government lo executive arm me plus down yet parliament sit down yet. Also, correct ruling law is tab. Law is not place clear, Mr. Speaker. Now, me how much you too, you uphold him law as it is without fear or favor. One play no how much law, place law, send him, na straight him talk dog and courthouse tab. Me no sem sampla man lo people ball 60 coinset na around him Chief Justice go outside. You know, you have the audacity to come into Parliament to try to hijack the process of Parliament. My goodness. This country is bigger than politicians. With or without us as politicians, this country will live on. And we must play by the book and play fair and square. November is budget sitting. And so the treasurer, by the hand and grace of God, God blocked insanity that was permeating on the other side. There are 11 or 12 ministers who were on the other side when this event took place on Friday. They could have seen there was clear provision that the leader of government business were indicating to them. I was indicating to them, don't break the law, but in the big voice they gathered on Friday, they clouded sanity and voice of law that was coming out on Friday. Behind him law. No can break him law or make him all something. Parliament technically wasn't sitting up until today. Speaker make him correct ruling. Maybe I sit down and budget sitting this Tuesday. Budget you mean I normally hand him down. And me like talk clear lo country. Also make him question blow. Vice Minister and member blow you me long NUMU. Budget blow me am now number 3 budget under leadership blow me but treasurer blow government behind him down. Our focus is on equal and fair distribution of resources through all parts of our country. Especially on Bush Place. Me call him Olisla Bush Place. Time me kiss him office lo 30th of May 2019. Plan to like clear 1M policy lo James MARAPE read my speech on the 30th of May 2019. Me no asset also come na me no clear 1M heavy block country. Me kaike saksak long remote part lo western province. Kaike tarob lo remote part lo west SEPIK. Round look at a Bush Place, na make my Prime Minister, me Stablo Street, na make my Prime Minister, me Prime Minister of Liglig man, Merilo Place. Inoblo, Mosby man, Kaikai man, Kam man, half man. This la budget, but rest I give him, member of NUMU, na Vice Minister, me la give him barely silo you. Past time Deputy Prime Minister, na past time Planning Minister, when me no rousing him, I made feeling was hard lo work want to me, na I got all the right block. Me respect him right block and me know our crossland. M2 leader of Wow Bulolo. I make a right to make him also something. But this la budget awesome 2 budget before me try him look. He got 3 or 4 main allocation. Apart from allocation of parliament, na judiciary. Me play focus long study heavy lo Bougainville. Me play focus lo study heavy lo outstanding all heavies. Now last 2 years, if you look him outside, me play tilly money. Try him best lo karma be mogad up while maintaining recurrent. Me like him assurance long member of long NUMU. Now people of NUMU, now rest of our country, now can busy law politics, Parliament, sit down, Parliament, but people are not stupid, Parliament go along, some to go next year, September, October, November, next year, January, or next year, June, July, no got. Work lo Parliament business, but go ahead. But people go straight. Me plan on a hurry up, na panic, na porret, na runway, but then budget sitting, budget must go, country but looking budget, blow, and me like tilly money, go all the part of the country, the Honorable Sam Basil was in the midst in that process. And all the ministers and cabinet, we play retiring process finished, and Parliament, by the hand and grace of God, concealed the dubiousness that was permeating on the other side, and allowed for Parliament business to continue after Friday, and we're only sitting for Treasurer to deliver the budget. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member of Langrum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question without notice now. Also, Makim House of People, Blancoram. Na SEPIK, me stop yet. Question Blomi go lo Works Minister. Legally question. Works Minister, through Speaker. Enough you talk clear long District Blomi, na og members here lo Parliament, lo good pla harim blol, na people lo Papua New Guinea osem. This law legally call funds, all money blow all road works, blow me blow all district. You transfer him finish go lo me pla or you know yet. So you know you explain him now. All people can hear him. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Works.
Okay. Good luck. Question blow. Member blow Angoram. Me talk. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Me pla long cabinet. I work him decent finish. Awesome long implementation long all rural roads. Mr. Speaker, this Parliament and me pass him one legislation where me call him Road Management and Road Fund Act. underneath law this NUPLA reform, law MIPLA passing me give him clear-cut indication long all rural roads by staff law and belong all districts. Now provincial roads by staff land law provincial government. So the decision has already been made that all the rural roads underneath the district in the provinces and by go back and long all provinces in the district. So but MIPLA facilitating this decision law government soon. Thank you. It's in the process. Thank you.
Honorable Member Blanc, TVWAN, Siasi.
Last asking lobby, Minister notice paper. May I ask him, we go along, Minister of Finance, acting Minister now of National Planning. Yes, me too, Blanc, Moreover, Mr. Speaker. Now, Moreover, Blast up the House, maybe in full, intact. Ask him, lobby, acting Minister of Planning, and Mosam. Something like Toya payout the last time. We brought all the support him all the me harem was some money in national planning too. You got to pay more sample man finish. And I'm confirming me true. I mean no true. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You must try to work. Go. Thank you.
Honorable Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, thank you, Law. Vice Minister of National Planning. Thank you to Rules last game. Number one, ask him blame law whether some funding is being paid out. Time former National Planning Minister na DPM is tapos National Planning Minister. I mean like inform him also some yes, some payment he come up in his na as to the districts na amas through payout. BNM can table him the exact amount were paid out, but me like inform him all members of some money payout to one majority, one particular party. So BNM gives him exact details as to how much was actually paid, but the figure I'm getting is between 60 and 65 million. So once we confirm him, I will come back to him as Vice Minister, and I think he was not aware of it as well. So just that this payment he come up now, that was done prior to what happened yesterday on Friday. So I think it was probably an orchestrated move. So me put him thinking blame that we will make known whichever payments were made so that we can understand the closed behind the doors dealings of what happened before the exit from this went on the other side. So thank you, Luis. Question, Vice Minister, I will give the exact details as to how much was paid to whichever district and which political party. So thank you, Luis Laskim. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor of Long Eastern Highlands.
What on man got right to talk me sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary blow me emulsion. Time government underneath law, MARAPE government. You work in budget and work in fairly law mipla olgata. And you know talk of him. Put him law one particular party. Or put him one particular ethnic group or regions. And walking along the budget block country. Now this payment of 60 million and go out, Minister talk. Which people all get is have planning minister and been on deputy prime minister and been staff at the time and look out in planning time money go out. And me must finance minister na minister blow planning to talk out straight or some equal one party straight. Mipla people blow Eastern Islands like Save. Mipla two road blow mipla planting projects blow mipla two is start. So in up and talk him go set so the country must Save straight. One of something come up. Okatala come up clean plamantas also. In up minister you talk out. Thank you.
Honorable Governor of Long Eastern Highlands. I think ask him Minister answer minister, but because you ask him supplementary, but Minister of Finance, you answer him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think question blame tupla to what MLEX have a one project. I think the source of payment, this project, will be payment come up. Number two, I need one allocation. Allocation, na go one party. First pla Beckham, number one, supplementary budget, you may pass him, special intervention program. We stop LP Mall district, long district program roads, district infrastructure, special intervention. Among those, one of those pockets of funding was used to pay some of these projects, so may I highlight him now. Number two, it was not taken from PIP. It was those allocation of funding, we all pay them out now. Majority of those members were named those stuff. I think it was to one particular party where the minister himself was the party leader for. So when we get United Labour Party, so that was the allocation of funding with Tapanitna. And then one or two were paid were just other members from other parties, but the majority of the payments were from each particular party that he was party leader of. So I can affirm to this honorable house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any further questions? No got questions more. Leader of the government business.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is leave granted? Leave granted. Leader of government business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent A, the Minister for Treasury, presenting the 2021 budget and associated papers, and B, the Appropriation General Public Service Expenditure 2021 Bill, Appropriation National Parliament 2021 Budget, Bill 2020, and Appropriation Judiciary Service 2021 Budget 2020 being presented together and debated as one, and C, separate questions be put on their second and third readings.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
First readings. Sorry, Minister. Member presenting. First one.
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I present the A, Appropriation General Public Services Expenditure 2021 Bill 2020, B, Appropriation National Parliament 2021 Bill of 2020, and C, Appropriation Judiciary Services 2021 Bill 2020.
Mr. Clerk.
First readings. Appropriation General Public Services Expenditure 2021, Bill 2020, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the General Public Service for operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021, Appropriation National Parliament 2021 Bill 2020, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the National Parliament for the year ending 31 December 2021. Appropriation Judiciary Services 2021 Bill 2020, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund sums for the Judiciary Services operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021.
Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bills be now read together a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, once again, it is an honour for me and my people of KVA and as Treasurer in the MARAPE government to stand here in Her Majesty's House to introduce the 2021 budget. This is my second budget and the seventh time making a major economic address to the Parliament as Treasurer. Consolidating the vision in times of crises. Mr. Speaker, let me reflect on the extraordinary circumstances surrounding my 2021 budget speech. Last Friday lunchtime, I was working with economic ministers and hard-working staff from Treasury, Finance and Planning to finalise the 2021 budget. We had gone through extensive consultations, listening to the submissions from businesses and the community, tackling or talking to our education officials, talking to our international colleagues about financing. We believed we had formed a sensible path forward in these extraordinary times. Then I was summoned to the National Parliament chamber. Another round of not just power-hungry, but power-greedy politics that ignored the national interest. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Last Friday, we saw opportunists led by that infamous National Court terrorist from Vanimo Green abuse our Constitution again, the laws of Parliament again, in a blatant illegal grab for power. This was the most cowboy of attempts to overthrow Prime Minister James MARAPE and his mandated government. Why would they do this? There was a press conference where some of those that had moved tried to justify their actions. I respect that some were genuine. People can decide to move on based on principles. Some boasted a bit too early about how brilliant their tactics had been, without thinking of the costs to our country. Many were concerned about our economy, our deficits and debt, about losing jobs even. Mr. Speaker, I share those concerns. All of us share those concerns in this House. But as I will set out in my speech, many of these concerns about debt and deficits and a lack of jobs were created by those they had just joined. They underestimate the severity of the COVID-19 pandemic. They look for very easy solutions, and they kid themselves that going backwards to the failed economic policies of the past could somehow take our country forward. What an extraordinary coincidence of cracking down on corruption, of fighting for better resource deals, of responsible budget management, and then less than 24 hours later, we have this embarrassing and shameful grab for power. Mr. Speaker, I know that there are now some honourable men on the other side, decent leaders, competent, and we all shall miss their contributions in the Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your ruling on the illegality of the motion to adjourn Parliament. Section 21A of the Organic Law on the calling of meetings of the Parliament is clear. The time and date for a meeting of the Parliament on motion without notice can only be made by a minister, not leader of the opposition. Game over. This means that until the laws of our land allows otherwise, the MARAPE government will continue to govern. We are not willing to let this nation suffer just because of their greed for power. We must continue running this country. We need to get the budget passed. Laka. We need to let our businesses know that the process of budget repair is continuing. We cannot delay the budget, which means our negotiations with international partners are also delayed. If we let those opposite get their greedy hands onto the budget process, let me assure this House that many of the good, cheap finances will simply disappear. They have demonstrated no economic credibility. The international community will step back and watch to see the nature of a new government. And these delays will damage our country and our economy. A responsible 2021 budget. Mr. Speaker, the domestic and international context for our 2021 budget is the most challenging in our nation's history. Since 1975, there has never been a global crisis as the one we are now facing today. Please do not blame this government for an international crisis that was not of its own making. Mr. Speaker, there have been figures that I've used to highlight the reality that the world is in by far its greatest economic crisis since our country became independent in 1975. Mr. Speaker, certainly a tough time to get the job as PNG's Treasurer. I already knew that it was going to be tough. In my 2020 budget speech, I outlined how Papua New Guinea had to start on the slow road of recovery due to years of economic mismanagement. So while trying to slowly recover from the debt, the deficit, the growth holes left by the former government. Papua New Guinea is hit with by far the worst global crisis since our nation's birth. So what do we do? Simply panicking and jumping off a ship as it is going through a storm is just not helpful. The overwhelming message is that we need a steady hand on the ship's rudder to navigate through these extraordinary times. So staying the course we set out a year ago, adapted to the realities of the COVID-19 crises. So there will be no big announcements of new initiatives in this budget. Rather, a wise and steady hand, consolidating our economic and budget situation so that we can move back to our growth path to begin rebuilding the living standards of our people. Let me try to set out some very basic facts. Expenditure expected to reach 19,607.8 million kina. This is a very substantial increase of 9% from the 17,989 million 2020 supplementary budget. But still not enough, it seems, for some of those sitting opposite. Revenues are expected to total 12,995 million kina, an increase of 1,636 million or 14.4%. This is a substantial rebound in revenue. Indeed, revenues are expected to increase by more than expenditure has increased. Once again, responsible, steady hand budget management. The deficit this year is expected to total 6,612 million kina. This is substantially smaller by 750 million kina relative to our budget situation once our revenues collapsed due to COVID-19. Remember that difficult period? This budget deficit will continue to decline, with a reduction in the deficit of another 1,317 million kina in 2022. This responsible budgeting will see a rapid decline in our deficit as a share of GDP. Specifically, after hitting a high of 9% in April 2020, the deficit declined to 8.1% in the supplementary budget, 7.3% this year, 5.3% in 2022, 3.2% in 2023, and then sustainable levels of around 2% for the following years. This is a very rapid turnaround. In international adjustment programs, the IMF sets a benchmark of about 1 percentage point per year. So moving from 9% deficit down to 2% deficit would usually take 7 years, but we are planning to do it in just 4 years. This is sensible budget management, bringing things back into control without having to destroy our economy through excessive expenditure cuts or even major new taxes. Debt debt. Good economic management now means there are 3 good news stories looking ahead. First, the debt we are taking on is much cheaper. We are repaying expensive old debt from the O'Neill-Abel years with much cheaper debt. The latest international loans had an interest rate of less than 1%. There is no other government in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker, that can stand on this floor and table that following statement. Well done, Prime Minister James MARAPE. Second, PNG's debt levels are going up much less than most countries. Third, the debt to GDP ratio is forecast to start turning around by 2023. The path ahead, resurging growth. It is now expected that our economy will grow by over 10.6% in nominal terms in 2021, from 81.6 billion kina up to 90.3 billion kina. In 2022, we once again expect nominal growth to over 10%, lifting the size of the economy to 99.4 billion kina, and shortly we will become a 100 billion kina economy. This is not just Treasury forecasts. The IMF is also forecasting an 18 billion increase in Papua New Guinea's nominal economy to 99 billion over 2021 and 2022. Mr. Speaker, after 18 months of hard work, the economic recovery has commenced. We expect nearly 18 billion of growth in the next 2 years. This is the largest 2-year growth figure in our nation's history. Even when the taps turn on with the PNG LNG project, the economy increased by less than 15 billion kina. The near 18 billion in growth over the next 2 years is mainly for the people of Papua New Guinea. Well over half is going into growth in the non-resource sector. So nearly an extra 3 billion kina in growth for our agriculture, forestry and fishing sectors. This reflects the growth in incomes we expect from a renewed focus on the agriculture sector. 620 million kina extra going into our construction sector, flowing from the large increases in capital infrastructure funding by the MARAPE government. Nearly 200 million kina extra in our manufacturing sector. Nearly $1 billion extra in our wholesale and retail trade. Another 180 million into our accommodation and food services. This is a better growth record, better balanced growth and big growth. And now the opposition wants to go and throw all that away to create chaos as our economy is recovering. Shame on you. So let me put these major growth numbers in terms of each person in Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, on average, we expect the average person in Papua New Guinea to be 1,000 kina better off over the next 2 years because of the economic policies we have put in place. Specifically, the increase in non-resource GDP of 9,898 million spread across our 9 million people is more than 1,000 kina per person. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, what extraordinary times we live in. We have suddenly found ourselves in the midst of a political crisis, but a steady hand will get us through. Yeah. We have found ourselves left with a legacy of an economic crisis, but a steady hand will get us through. We have found ourselves in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, but a steady hand will get us through. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to focus on the crises that we are experiencing. I want to look ahead. I want to be positive, realistically. I want to make clear that there is a clear path forward through to the 2022 election and beyond. I want to make clear that the leaders on this side of the House truly believe Papua New Guinea is a country of enormous potential. Potential that is starting to be realized. We are heading towards the most rapid recovery and growth of our economy in our history. 18 billion kina over the next 2 years. Much more than during the opening of the PNG LNG project. Delivering the potential for an increase in incomes of 1,000 kina for every one of our people. The new vision of the MARAPE government is starting to deliver the goods. Slow and steady reductions in the budget deficit. Slow and steady actions to move towards cheaper debt with interest costs of less than 1%, and seeing the debt to GDP ratio commence its decline once again. Slow and steady actions to move more of our budget to productive investment, not just on public service wages. Slow and steady actions that are building confidence. Slow and steady actions that are about to deliver the largest broad-based growth dividend in our country's history. 1,000 kina per person. Actions that benefit our agriculture, forestry, fisheries, tourism and manufacturing sectors. Growth actions that are forward-looking, such as our investment in labour mobility and the tens of thousands of jobs that it promises. Mr. Speaker, I thank my parliamentary colleagues and especially my ministerial advisors and staff who continue to dedicate their life for the betterment of our people. I also thank those many unacknowledged but committed staff in the Department of Treasury who have worked so tirelessly to prepare yet another national government budget. Mr. Speaker, I commend the 2021 national government budget to the House. Thank you. Kalaro Giro Kadogomase.
Honorable Treasurer desla tokplese ino clear lo parliament em triple tokples to song. English talk pisin motu. Na desla hap ya utro mai now I no clear lo parliament, so I just remind you. Chairman's will plans and estimate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to give the appraisal of the Plans and Estimates Committee. Mr. Speaker, we met and we had a look at the headline numbers in the budget. Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge that these are difficult times. And these are difficult times not just in Papua New Guinea, but these are difficult times around the world. These are not the sorts of times that anyone would be excited about doing a budget. We live in a world where the economy of the entire planet is depressed. And therefore, as leaders, we need to take a decision, Mr. Speaker, and we recognize that. We also want to do the right thing by our people. And Mr. Speaker, if I may, there are some of us in this House that want to do the right thing, whether it be with the budget, whether it be with the processes about which we conduct our business as a House, as an honorable House, if I may add. Mr. Speaker, some of us want to do the right thing. In our appraisal of the budget, Mr. Speaker, there were colleagues who said, "Yubla hurry up na kam." And we said, no. We will listen to the bureaucrats who produced this budget. We are going to do that independently of what the Treasurer says. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility to this House, not just to the government. And, Mr. Speaker, I must say that my colleagues on the committee did their job for the country today. Mr. Speaker, we asked some difficult questions of those who produced the budget. And, Mr. Speaker, I am not sure who used to chair the committee before, but it was easy to see that the public servants were reluctant. And, Mr. Speaker, I will repeat the words of the public servants as I close later on during my response. But I want to say this, Mr. Speaker. We looked at the budget strategy, and we thought these are noble things to do in difficult times. Spend money more wisely, Mr. Speaker. That's how it starts off. Raise revenues fairly, Mr. Speaker. Finance the debt more cheaply. And on that note, I noticed that the Treasurer gave credit to the Prime Minister. And I'm sure it was a team effort. Mr. Speaker, this Treasurer always downplays the important role that he played. Mr. Speaker, never in our history, and I say this to the Papua New Guineans who are listening, I am a person who is scared of debt, but this Treasurer has been able to get the trust of the world. All of the lenders that refused to deal with Papua New Guinea before, they are now dealing with this Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. That should signal some confidence to us. It certainly does to me. I was stunned to find out that he got a loan for 0.75% interest. I was shocked. We've never done that before. So, Mr. Speaker, credit where credit is due. We already inherited a very difficult budget, a very difficult economy. You add COVID-19 and all of its inherent effects, Mr. Speaker, you're going to need a genius to drive the country through it financially. And I think, Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer has done his job for the country today. And I challenge any Treasurer to do better, because he has set the benchmark, Mr. Speaker. He has leveraged friendly international support. For the first time, Mr. Speaker, the Australian government is giving loans to the Papua New Guinean government. Mama country, look out him Yumi here, and now give him Yumi Dinao. Very cheaply, Mr. Speaker. And I support in budget too, if I may add. The other headline is to get foreign exchange flowing more freely, Mr. Speaker, and we support that. There is a headline here that says, Mr. Speaker, and I continue, a focus on the agricultural sector and the informal sector, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was quite surprised this year when the chairman of the Bank of South Pacific received a check of 100 million from this Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, and he said this is the first time the government has actually given us any money to fund their programs. I was shocked and surprised, Mr. Speaker, at his admission. To distribute resource benefits more equitably, to stimulate the non-resource sector back to annual growth, which of around 5%, to invest in the enabling infrastructure and critical SOE reforms. The last one, Mr. Speaker, is to create at least 10,000 jobs annually. Mr. Speaker, these are noble targets, and it is all our responsibility, particularly now when there is more and more funding moving down to provinces and districts, for us to all take note of the headline that is in the national budget strategy and to implement accordingly, Mr. Speaker. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, we have to be fair and honest in this House and to say we are concerned about the size of the debt. Any responsible leader would be. I am happy to see that in the 5-year budget strategy, the Treasurer has a plan to reduce the debt over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, it is our concern that we ensure that that plan is actually carried out. And we lay some foundations so that we can demonstrate to our people that yes, time no good na mi blaksim dinaw. Because, Mr. Speaker, to balance between cutting expenditure during a tough time, there are two schools of thought in economics. Number one, you cut budget when things get difficult. Number two, you increase government expenditure to stimulate the economy. Mr. Speaker, this government is taking the second approach, which is to take on debt to stimulate the economy so that it can grow. We can disagree about which school of thought to follow, but Mr. Speaker, this government chooses that path. And therefore, we have to responsibly construct a plan to reduce that debt over the medium term. It is a delicate balancing act, Mr. Speaker, and everyone in this House must make a commitment to generate savings where possible and to implement honestly and maintain fiscal discipline. I want to close, Mr. Speaker, by repeating the words of the Deputy Secretary. I asked him a difficult question. I said to him, Deputy Secretary, I am a governor of a province. I cannot afford to tell lies on the floor of Parliament. I have to tell the truth. And I want you to tell me, honestly, what is your confidence in this budget? And this is his response, Mr. Speaker, and I want to tell the House. He said this: every time we develop a budget, it takes hours and hours of work. We have an economic model. We put all our assumptions into this model. We work at it, and over a long period of time, as we fine-tune and adjust the numbers, it gives us these figures that are now presented before the House. He said, we don't determine expenditure priorities. I'm something below government. And I said to him, how important and how accurate is this model? And he said, it depends on many variables. And he did mention, Mr. Speaker, that POGRA was important in that equation. And the Governor for Enga, who has been working with the Prime Minister and the Honourable Minister for Mining, who have been negotiating with our partners, I'm happy to see that they are also working towards this outcome that the budget requires. And that's how I want to close, Mr. Speaker. And with that, honourable members of the House, I commend the budget.
Thank you, Mr.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker. Let me appreciate the Treasurer. I also appreciate the statement or response or approval by the Parliamentary Committee on Plans and Estimates. It's not easy for us to tell a budget with global economic contraction and our country contraction. We are deliberately using budget from our own internal revenue that has contracted, as well as low, cheaper borrowing from credible partners, not side lenders, but established global lenders in almost low lending. For instance, the Australia government lending last year was at 0% interest. Direct Forex, $300 million infused into our economy through our central bank as a result of that lending in 2019. We have also borrowing cheaper from IMF, for instance, 15-year period, 5-year grace period, 0% lending. And let me assure our country, we're not stupids and economic imbeciles running budget. We know exactly what we are doing. In 2019, when we delivered budget, we never saw COVID-19. COVID-19 is an established case globally now. It has affected global economy. But we are working to be extrovert in this sort of time. State borrowing and our borrowings will be transferred at different layers, at national government programs, at provincial government programs, district programs, as well as maintaining our existing recurrent and financing our debts that has been secured in past. So Treasurer is handing a budget in tough times. It's budget meant to maintain stimulus in our country economy. And when that stimulus is maintained, at the back of this, let me assure our country. And I thank Parliament. Last week, Wednesday, we passed 5 consequential amendments that is very much incongruent to Papua LNG agreement. This now enables Papua LNG to get off the block, and I appreciate and place on record my appreciation for ExxonMobil, Oil Sets, and Total for the understanding that Papua LNG must get off, and we will reconstruct the platform for Pyongyang in a manner that is isolated from Papua, but jointly running for Project Synergy, something that we'll pursue into the future. So as Treasurer is putting this, let me assure our country, we're not reckless, we're not unconscious to the fact that we need to be living in a sustainable manner going into the future. We will use our budget as a tool to propagate and stimulate the economy as we run into 2021. Part in the 2021 is good allocation for national census, good allocation for Comoral updates, good allocation for I want to look at biometric voting so that we have a tidier, better voting process in 2021. And so 2022, I beg your pardon, 2021 budget also has quite a good chunk of allocation inside to prepare well for 2022 elections. So our brothers on the other side who feel they have a voice and they feel they can contribute to the country also, and every one of us can have a fair and equal platform as we contest for 2022 for governments beyond this one. So, Mr. Speaker, let me assure our country through the budget that is delivered, it has every element of sustainability, it has every element of fairness in distributing to all parts of our country through various layers of program, national government program, district programs, and provincial programs. It has every layers, it embraces retiring our public service recurrence to the fullest, and it has every provision to ensure our debts are past sustainably retired as we move into our 2021 money plan. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. Let me, joining the Honourable Governor of East SEPIK, let me applaud and appreciate our Treasurer. In tough times, he's been a steady hand. Many times he doesn't get commendations, and he tries to deflect the commendation to me, but he burns midnight oil for the sake of steady hand at the Treasury. And unfortunately, we've seen a little element of disjoint in Treasury and planning. What has emerged as a tectonic shift that has taken place last week is possibly the reason why those disjoint has taken place. We will reassemble to ensure we don't have the disjoint, but fully functioning of Treasury, planning, finance, and central government goes out to save our people in these tough times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the Treasurer in commenting this.
The question is that the question be put. Would those in favor say aye? Aye. Those against say no? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Appropriation General Public Services Expenditure 2021 Bill 2020.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Would those in favor say aye? Aye. Those against say no? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading. A bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the general public service for operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021.
All members, I wish to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November 2020 recommending the expenditure of public monies of Papua New Guinea in accordance with Section 210 of the Constitution insofar as the Operation General Public Service 2021 Bill 2020 relates and to provide for such expenditure. Minister of Treasury.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is leave granted? Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the question be put. With those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the question be now read a third time. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading. A bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the general public service for operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021.
Mr. Clerk.
Appropriation National Parliament 2021 Bill 2020.
Speaker.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the National Parliament for the year ending 31 December 2021.
Honourable members, I wish to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November
2020.
recommending that the expenditure of public monies of Papua New Guinea according to Section 2.1 of the Constitution insofar as the appropriation National Parliament 2021 Bill 2020 relates to and provides for such expenditure. Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is leave granted?
Aye.
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the question be put. With those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the National Parliament for the year ending 31 December 2021.
That's it. You got your money.
Mr. Clerk.
Appropriation Judiciary Services 2021 Bill 2020.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund sums for the judiciary services, operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021.
All members, I wish to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November 2020, recommending the expenditure of public monies of Papua New Guinea in accordance with Section 2.1 of the Constitution, insofar as the appropriation Judiciary Services 2021 Bill 2020 relates to and provides for such expenditure. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is leave granted? Aye. If granted, Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bills be now read a third time.
The question is that the question be now put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund sums for the judiciary services, operational and capital expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2021.
Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Customs Tariff 2021 Budget Amendment Bill 2020.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Act, Chapter 101, to increase the penalties for offences under the Act and for related purposes.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this proposed amendment to the Customs Act of 1951 is to generally increase all current penalty fees and imprisonment terms of importers, exporters, brokers, and travelling passengers across borders who are in breach of PNG Customs law. This measure is to enhance compliance by imposing higher penalties on offences relating to smuggling and breach of customs processes. The measure is expected to come into effect on the 1st of January 2021. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
The question is the question be put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Act, Chapter 101, to increase the penalties for offences under the Act and for related purposes.
Honourable members, I have to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November 2020 recommending the imposition of taxation in accordance with Section 210 of the Constitution insofar as the bill relates to and provides for such imposition. Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is leave granted? Leave granted. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the question be now put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Act, Chapter 101, to increase the penalties for offences under the Act and for related purposes.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Excise Tariff 2021 Budget Amendment Bill 2020.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Excise Tariff Act 1956, Chapter 107.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
The question is that the question be now be put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the Excise Tariff Act 1956, Chapter 107.
Honourable members, I have to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November 2020 recommending the imposition of taxation in accordance with Section 210 of the Constitution insofar as the bill relates to and provides for such imposition. Minister for Treasury.
Yeah. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
So leave granted. Leave granted. Mr. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
Question is that the question be now put. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Excise Tariff Act 1956, Chapter 107.
Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Income Tax 2021 Budget Amendment Bill 2020.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Income Tax Act 1959.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes amendments to 1, to make corrections to the Income Tax 2019 Budget Amendment Bill 2018 with respect to the reduction in the period within which taxpayers can carry forward losses and the transitional arrangements. This correction will reflect the true tax policy intent of the government. Number 2, ensure resource developers make the royalty payments directly to the Internal Revenue Commission. 3, amend the due dates for provisional tax to align with companies operating under a substituted accounting period and to ensure more accurate estimate reporting. These changes will allow the Internal Revenue Commission's SIGTAS system to better manage this tax type. And finally, 4, to make corrections to the threshold for the small business tax regime and introduce anti-avoidance rule. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend Income Tax Act 1959.
Honourable members, I have to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor General dated 17 November 2020, recommending the imposition of taxation in accordance with Section 210 of the Constitution insofar as the bill relates to and provides for such imposition. Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Sleep granted. Aye. Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the question be put. Would those in favor say aye? Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Income Tax Act 1959.
Yes, Brisbane Acting.
Leader of Government Business.
Speaker, I leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is leave granted? Aye. Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Mr. Alfred Manasseh, Mr. Elias Kapavore, Mr. Jeffrey Komar, Mr. Peter Isiamo, Mr. Tomit Kapeli be discharged from attendance as members of the Private Business Committee, and that Mr. Charlie Benjamin, Mr. Philip Undialo, Mr. Robert Agorobe, Mr. Toba Yoto, and Mr. William Poi be appointed members of the committee.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. At this juncture, I move that Parliament at its rising adjourn until Tuesday, 20th April, 2021 at 2 p.m. o'clock.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn Parliament to Tuesday, 20th April, 2021.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Parliament now is adjourned to April 2021 at 2 o'clock p.m.